So on paper, Legends of Abyss would probably be an amazing game. But I feel like there's so much more missing here, and I really just can't put my finger on it. The world feels a little too empty, the game feels a little too clunky. But I know you guys seen the thumbnail, it's not that bad. So just hear me out, let me explain. Stay to the end of the video, I have all the pros and cons, and I'll explain a little bit of what I feel about this Dark Souls-like RPG, clone, ripoff, whatever you want to call it. Welcome to Chaotic Inc. It's KSD TV here. If you're new here, we cover news, guides, gameplays about your favorite RPGs on both PC and mobile devices. So let's go a little bit over on the premise of this game before I get into why I have mixed feelings about it. This game is currently being played off of my emulator, which is LD Player 4. So I am playing through an emulator's POV, so I won't have that true mobile experience. So whatever I am experiencing, whatever I'll talk about today's video, keep it with a grain of salt. You might have a different experience if you're playing strictly on the actual mobile device. I don't have an Android, I have iOS. So the game is not available for iPhones, so just keep that also in mind if you actually wanted to try this out. If you are on iPhone, you must get an emulator to play this game. Immediately, as soon as the game starts, you can see Dark Souls literally just written everywhere, from the cutscene, the way everything played out, the initial tutorial, without it being a tutorial, everything that plays out. Immediately, you can see how Dark Souls is just like plastered all over. I know the game is meant to be a mobile-based version of it, but man, can the devs do a lot more work with it, and let's talk about that. So I did a little bit of research outside of the game, seeing if anybody else had any forums about it or whatever, and I'm seeing a lot of weird comments of this game is like Elden Ring because of this open world aspect. I don't know where I read that from, and I kind of beg to differ. I've played Elden Ring, I've played every Souls game, I even played Demon Souls. WR Legends of Abyss is almost remotely nowhere near close to it, but it definitely does attempt to have some of the formulas about a Soulsborne game, and a Bloodborne as well. Like the initial tutorial, you can see how you die, and then from how you die, you can create a character, you can choose a class, which I did choose the Rogue class, and I love building off dexterity builds, so I came into this like, oh yeah, dexterity build all the way, and sadly mistaken. So in the character creation, you get to choose between 5 different classes, which would be the Knight, the Rogue, the Mage, the Warrior, and the Cleric. Now after creating my humble Rogue, after experiencing the ever so clunky tutorial, which the premise of the story still confuses me, I listened to it and I was just lost. I didn't understand anything, so I was expecting that, oh, probably there'll be some visual cues or some NPCs will be able to explain a little bit more, you know how they do in most Souls games. But then once you jump into the game is pretty much soulless, no pun intended. There's not a single NPC inside. You don't really talk to anybody. There's nobody to really give you a premise on why am I here, what happened, what am I doing. And it was about time to first just initially play this game, and this is where my first con comes into play. The actual overall gameplay experience, especially the combat. It was very sluggish feeling. I really do want this game to succeed, but man, for a mobile game, the combat shouldn't feel this way. I played a lot of mobile games. It shouldn't feel this way. It just feels just sluggish. There's no actual impact behind your swings, or even just a slight impact. I know it's mobile, it can't do full-on Unreal Engine 5 or Unreal Engine 4 type of style. No one's asking for that. It's just a little subtle thing. I feel like I'm actually hitting somebody. Now, like I said, I still believe this game can succeed with a few more updates, and the devs can get a little bit more support. I can see this game succeeding and being in its own little world in RPG mobile spectrum. Now, one thing I can say is the leveling is very natural, very simple, very easy to do. You don't need like a maiden or a firekeeper as you will see in most of the Souls games, or even in Bloodborne. You don't need to go to the shop or anything of that nature. You can literally just pull up your menu, level up whenever you level up, and go from there. Which I find that in the mobile standpoint, that's probably something that is very easy and simple to just construct. So I definitely give props to the devs for definitely making it as simple as you can for something mobile, for a game that is for a style of game that can be very difficult. A little bit more on the difficulty of the gameplay or the combat. So one thing that is always in a Dark Souls trope is the backstabbing. Now there is backstabbing in this game, and man, do I tell you what, backstabbing in this game is god awful. I can never pull it off really. It's so hard to do. Like, I did it in the initial tutorial because it was programmed to do so, but when you're in the actual game and trying, so all the enemies just stand still and they got their back towards you, and as soon as you get a little bit too close, they turn around and the backstab is interrupted. Now, no, this isn't like Elden Ring where I can crouch behind somebody or anything of that nature. It's very difficult to pull off backstabs. Granted, like I said, I'm playing on emulator, so I can't use my thumbs and move around, so I'm using my mouse to move myself around, and then when I get into position, then I have to flick my wrist over, then click attack. I seen that there was controller support. You could throw a PS4 controller or a Xbox 360 controller, which I have one. I plugged it in, and I guess the game is just quite bugged, so it wouldn't even let me use my controller to even play the game naturally. And I feel like that's one issue that I'm running into with this emulator, that there's not much that I can do when it comes to just actual gameplay. So like I said, I'm playing through an emulator's POV. Your situation may be completely different if you are playing strictly on Android. And speaking of more about the enemies themselves, I don't feel the sense of urgency as I will in most of the games. Now, I feel like that is partially some of the programming of the AI, is that you don't overwhelm somebody on mobile. But like I said, I've seen many games kind of do that, like Torchlight, some other RPGs where like you can still do it, but all the enemies just sit there. There's not much enemies that going around. There's not like it's just the world itself just feels like soulless, and there's nothing there. I'm just here just to slash this enemy, go to the next one. Like, I don't feel immersed into the world of Legends of Abyss. I barely understand why I'm here, or what am I doing, or a idea of what the hell is going on. So what I can say is I don't feel that urgency. I feel like I'm just running through these enemies. Now, I was slowly getting uninterested into the game halfway through it, and that's just mainly just because I was already losing the immersion and just slightly just being irritated just how my experience is being played. So like I said, take it with a grain of salt, but I am a heavy Souls fan, so if this is going to be a Souls-like game, then I want to feel that adrenaline rush that I get when like I'm in and out, I'm killing enemies, I'm already starting to get into the lore, and then boom, we're to the boss, and then so on and so forth. NPCs, I pick up certain specific quests from NPCs, like, oh, I'll find it later. Anything of that nature. If it's going to be a Souls-like game, it should definitely go full sail. It'd be a Souls-like game. I'm not saying you got to sit there and do every single thing that Dark Souls does. Just do a little better. Do a little better. Like I said, this game has potential. It does have potential. I'm not saying that it's completely like throwing off the rails. Like, it does have potential. I just feel like the devs would have did a little bit more, especially on both sides of the spectrum. I don't know if people are having trouble on the Android side of things, which I also read some reviews on that, and some people actually are. So I don't feel too bad. I don't feel too bad for me struggling on my PC. Another initial thing that stopped me from playing Legends of Abyss was actually the first boss you come across in the game. Now, this boss is technically a two-part fight. Sort of. It's weird. You enter you enter through the gray fog, which, as in every Souls game, there's a fog door before the boss. Enter in, and you're met up with this stranger. That's what his name is, and he comes up with you. He hits you for whatever amount of damage, which is literally like one tick of health. He barely can even hurt you. You go to hit him. I hit him for maybe 10 damage each hit, which is weird because when I was running through the rest of the enemies, I was almost one-shotting them and dealing insane amount of damage. So, very confusing. I don't know what's wrong here. What am I missing? If you guys have played WR Legend of Abyss and you've gone further past this, what am I doing wrong? Because there's no way where I didn't kill like 10 enemies prior before this boss fight, one-shot them, clean them out. I get to the boss fight and I'm dealing only 10 damage to this guy. Now, I'm pretty sure that his part is exactly scripted, because then once you hit him enough times, he then throws a sword in the, well, points a sword in the air, and boom, the real fight begins, the Blackguard. Now, here's my gripe with the Blackguard fight. This fight is literally dumb. So you come in, you go in for him. I will walk around him, hit him a couple of times, and I will deal a little amount of damage, which is still crazy to me. Because at this point when I'm fighting him, I'm level 10, I done leveled up. I'm doing some damage to him. Barely, like it's barely doing it. Then he turns around and he just cracked me in the face with his shield, one shot when I had full health. Makes no sense. Now, granted, I'll understand if this was more of a telltale sign, like, because in most boss designed fights, like some that are equally like well good, a lot of bosses have a telltale sign of like, hey, this attack you may want to dodge, or you may not want to get hit by this attack. Sometimes you can't dodge certain attacks. You just may not just want to be out of the radius of the attack. No, it's just a simple shield hit and one shot. Then after 6 or 7 more times of fighting him, it came from just to be in the shield attack, and it's just a simple spear poke. So, and that's another thing that is my biggest con about this. If this first fight is gonna be like, if this first fight is like this, I'm scared to see what the rest of the game entails for the rest of the bosses. There's no way the first exact boss of your fight should be one-shotting you at full health. Maybe 4 or 5 hits, sure, you got low health, this is the beginning of the game, sure. Utilize what you got. Not to mention, playing as a rogue, my other 2 abilities that I have were completely useless. I would use them on the regular enemies and the boss. They barely did anything. I dead rid of their skills, and it's just like, it did nothing. They were useless. They were paperweights. My only amount of damage I can actually do was just my base attack, which again, I feel like the devs need to work on that. Like, if you're going to have abilities here, and the ability says it does X, Y, and Z, it should does at some point do X, Y, and Z. So that's pretty much my initial first impressions. Granted, like I said, this is just a first impressions. This is not a review. I just wanted just to talk to you guys about this and just bring up a community talk with you guys. Now, I'm going to run through some of the pros and cons that I have about this game, and then we'll talk from there. So my pros is the leveling. The graphics are actually pretty decent for what the game is. It does give off this dark medieval type of aesthetic. The leveling system is simple and easy, and there's a nice balance of classes to choose from. Now, my cons, the world feels empty. I really wish there was a little bit more with the world, whether it's NPCs or a little bit of story to go throughout my entire travel up until the first boss. I need to know why am I fighting this dude? Who is this dude? Who is the stranger? I'm confused. And am I missing anything? I would like a little bit more explanation. Now, if you guys have played this game, let me know in the comment section below. The combat is very wacky. It's really difficult to perform a lot of maneuvers. Like I said, granted, I am playing on an emulator, but I still feel like the controller support should be much better, and that's my next con. The game offers controller support. You see it in the settings. I clicked on the 360 gamepad, plugged in my 360 controller, nothing worked. And it's crazy because I just plugged the 360 gamepad into Elden Ring, and I'm able to play it on my PC. So I feel like it's another bug. So I don't know if the boss designs is bugged or anything of that nature. This video is just simply here to just bring attention to a game that could definitely be good. Devs, if you're watching this, your game isn't bad. It's just, it needs a lot of work, but I love the idea. Give it a couple of updates. Say if you see what I'm saying and see what other people are saying, because I've watched some other mobile YouTubers make gameplay videos on this, and they all said similar or have their own gripes about it, but they still have mixed feelings about it because it is definitely something that is good for being a Souls-like game. So the moral of the story of today's episode is that dev team, if you could fix this, the bugs, the leveling experience in the game, being level 10, you're being one-tapped by a basic move, or the outright world of the Abyss, mainly just the immersion of playing through it. The enemies have a little bit of better AI. I can actually utilize the rest of my abilities, like my other 2 skill sets from my rogue class, then this game would be just as fine. And if you could do a little bit more to it, that would be great. If not, that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to bring it up to you guys, to the Outcast community. If you guys enjoyed today's video, then definitely give it a like. If you're going to hop onto this game, make sure it is only Android, or if you're on PC, it will be an emulator. You guys have a good rest of your day. It's been your host, KSDTV, here at Chaotic Inc., signing out. Peace.
Just a pipe dream, cause when I write things, I make them manifest. I don't sleep, that's so weak, don't plan to rest. I'm from a hood where you die if you don't pack a vest. No culinary degrees, but whipping crack the best. Chefing, hard times taught lessons. Praying every night to pull up in park Benzes. What's my home is what you call trenches. You wouldn't last a day seeing life through all lenses. It's all tension, no sun, and rain and plenty, full